What's your thoughts of Blackpool?
I think it's a bit of a shithole. I'm allowed to say that.
Yeah, I'll bleep that bit out. Right, my friends, today I am in Blackpool. It needs no introduction. It's possibly, I would say, the most famous, the most popular seaside resort in the United Kingdom. And I also have here the most popular Blackpool vlogger, Stephen from A Walk on the Wild Side, because no Blackpool video would be complete without this guy here. Now, you may have seen me do a video about Morecambe, and it came number 5, I believe, on the worst seaside resorts in the United Kingdom. Now, Blackpool actually beat it. That's even worse, apparently. That's number 4. However, I don't see how that can be, because I actually think Blackpool is a little bit of a gem, and it's been quite famous and it's very popular as well. So today, we're going to speak to Stephen here, who's going to tell us a little bit about Blackpool and why he thinks it isn't and it shouldn't be number 4 on the list. And also we're going to speak to a guy called Paul Galley, who is a councillor, isn't he? And we're going to get his verdict on it as well. And we're going to take a look around Blackpool and see what it's like. If you're new to the channel, by the way, please do hit the subscribe button. Subscribe to this guy here as well. Here's Stephen from A Walk on the Wild Side. Now, without further ado, my friends, let's go. Right, before we go and see Councillor Paul, I'm going to ask you, because you are Blackpool, you are Mr Blackpool, you spend a lot of time here and you spend a lot of time vlogging Blackpool, and it's not all positive. You do actually show the negative sides of Blackpool. Now, it comes number 4 on the list of the worst seaside towns in the United Kingdom. I'm not sure how that can be when you look at Morecambe, which is actually supposed to be better, but I actually think there's more things to do right here in Blackpool than there is in Morecambe. Why do you think that it's number 4, and where do you think that it should be on the list of the worst places to visit seaside towns in the UK, if at all?
Well, I actually think if you look on the internet, you'll see that there are a lot of these lists going around, and they're for all different things. And Blackpool always tends to rate fairly highly, which is not a good thing, you know, because it normally, you know, like, in fact, there was one list where I think we were number 2. In fact, we came about 8 places within a top 10 of worst of worst areas within towns, and so that's not very good. But they're always having these lists, and yet they always seem to make them up, and they find the worst bits. And I don't really take too much notice of them, because they could do another list where we could be the best place. You know, if you look at the best things, because we've got the tower, we've got the piers, we've got so much history here in Blackpool, and obviously we have suffered a little bit since the tourists all went off to Spain, since went on the jumbo jets to Spain and all that sort of thing. But we've got so much history here in Blackpool, we could easily be just the number 1 for, you know, so.
You've got Madame Tussauds, you've got the ballroom, there's lots of places. You've got the Winter Gardens. The Winter Gardens here is still open and still houses lots of different shows, etc. I went there, I think, many years ago as well, whereas Morecambe's Winter Gardens at the moment, I believe, I think it's been renovated, but I don't think it's actually open. You can correct me in the comment section down below. You've got your tram system here. You've actually got the old tram as well that's still running.
Yeah, the classic tram.
The classic tram.
Yeah, there's nothing like the Blackpool trams. There's so much history of the tram. Don't forget the Pleasure Beach as well down the South Shore.
The Pleasure Beach.
There's so much that Blackpool have got that we've kept that we haven't knocked down. I mean, there's a lot of stuff we do knock down, which they should knock down, but thankfully we've still got a lot of this history going around, where other places might have not, you know, like piers, they fall down, don't they? Well, we've got 3 piers and they're all still standing, which is amazing, really, when you think about it, after all that time.
Would you say that Blackpool should be the #1 best seaside town in the UK? I personally, I'm being biased, I actually think it is, because as you've just said, you've still got your piers, you've got your towers, you've got everything here. It gets a bad rap.
Yeah, it does. And it always has been the number one, to be quite fair. It grew so fast, took in the late 19th century. Everybody came here to Blackpool. And a lot of the other resorts, say on the East Coast like Scarborough and that, they didn't really compete with Blackpool, you know. And up the road in Morecambe as well. Morecambe couldn't really compete, it wasn't really big enough. We've also got to mention, we've also got a motorway that comes right into Blackpool. Not a lot of other places have a motorway that comes right in to the town like we do, so that's another big plus for Blackpool.
I think these people who write these reports and do these top 10 don't actually spend enough time in it, and don't actually get face to face with the people that matter, and the people of Blackpool and of these seaside resorts, like yourself. We're going to go and see the councillor as well. We're going to have a wander around. You're going to show us some of the good sides of it. You're going to come along for the whole video as well, because as I say, no video would be complete without this guy. By the way, if you love Blackpool and you don't know who this guy is, you need to head over and subscribe to him. And if you do love Blackpool, you'll already know who he is. We're going to have a wander around. Can you show me some of the bad places as well as the good?
Yeah,
and
we'll
we'll
do that.
We'll have a wander around. Anyway, come on, onwards, my friends. Right, here we are at Blackpool Town Hall. We're going to head on in now. We're going to speak to Paul. We're going to ask him what he thinks about Blackpool and Blackpool's future, and also why it appears as number 4 on the worst holiday hotspots in the United Kingdom. I personally don't think it should be there. Let's see what Paul's got to say. Come on. Right, here we are. We've got Councillor Paul Galley.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I am really well. I'm super excited to see you, and I'm really pleased I actually put on a suit today, and I didn't even know we were going to see each other, so my mum will be pleased. So you're not very smart.
It was a surprise, and I have to say, I always sort of like have a little dig at councillors on my video. However, this guy here I have huge respect for, because what you're doing for Blackpool is just amazing, and your vision of Blackpool as well, when I met you in the Heritage Tram video, was just amazing. It really was. So total respect. Now you're going to show us a little bit around the building before I ask you some questions about Blackpool itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Blackpool is a new town. So we are very lucky to actually have photographs of those first sort of forefathers that built the town, the first mayor, the first councillors. Now, some places you go, that would be like 800 years ago. In Blackpool, it's only 100 years ago. The people that built the tower, the people that built the winter gardens, the people that built the parks and the tram system. And you'll see there's portraits around us. So I'll be able to show you some of those portraits, who those people were. And the very fact that they were only 2 or 3 generations ago is the sort of thing that I love, because they're the answers to some of today's problems. We just reinvent what they did.
Now this building has something to do with the Titanic, apparently, doesn't it?
Well, only very loosely. So I don't expect to see loads of Titanic fans coming here.
Okay.
So basically, some of the furniture, because the building was built around 1910, some of the furniture in the chamber, which I'll show you, was built by the same people who built some of the interiors of the Titanic.
Oh,
so some of those craftsmen would have probably chiseled or polished.
Maybe one of the doors as well.
Let's reinvent it. Exactly.
Well, then we can see whether the door would actually house Jack on there.
I was just about to say, I heard the sale price yesterday on the replica. Did you see that?
It's crazy.
Yeah, we could pretend, but no, we won't.
Yeah, we could sell one of the doors here. No, we couldn't do that. Don't do that. Let's have a look around.
Let's have a look around.
And then I want to ask you about Blackpool, because it is number 4 on one of the worst seaside towns in the UK, and I don't believe that it should be on there at all, especially not number 4. So.
I agree. I wouldn't do this job if I didn't believe that the case here. Blackpool is this incredible place, Crucially though, it's because the people that live here are pretty special.
That's what I found out with Morecambe. It actually is the people of the town. Let's take a look around. Right, this is like Crown Court, isn't it?
Yeah, you've got to behave yourself in
I've got
here.
to behave, but I can hear that. So can you tell us, what is this amazing room?
I'm glad you think it's amazing, because I personally think it's designed to do that to you. So remember, this is a council chamber. So every 2 months, this will be full of all the Blackpool's councillors. And it's designed to remind us that we are not bigger than Blackpool. Blackpool's bigger than us. And the building does that to you, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's very humbling. So you've got the leader of the council sits there. The ruling group sit there. I sit on that desk there, and my group sits on this side. The press are just over there.
Back, yeah.
And behind us here, this wonderful display, we've got the mayor sits there.
In the middle, yeah.
And then you've got the mace that goes across.
Oh, they put the mace onto there.
Got the mace there, yeah. You've got the chief executive of the council sits there, and the clerks sit there. And if the mayor is religiously reminded, the priest will sit there. And over there you have the public. But around you, I was earlier talking about that Blackpool was built by the labour of people from Yorkshire and Lancashire and Manchester. The artwork is also gives us some clues. The portrait there is Henry VII marrying one of the, I can't remember the title, it's a lady from Lancaster. So it's the union after a civil war, in fact, the War of the Roses, of the House of Yorkshire, the white and red of Lancashire and Yorkshire coming together.
My mum was always talking about the War of the Roses, because she
Roses.
was from Lancashire.
That's right.
And obviously Yorkshire and Lancashire.
That's it, yeah. And on that one you've got the Battle of Bosworth as well.
Wow.
So it's this symbolic view of these two houses coming together, Yorkshire and Lancashire coming together. And if anything, Blackpool is a product of that, which is why Blackpool has quite a unique accent. It's not a particularly Lancastrian accent, it's its own unique accent.
It is, yeah, it is.
And that's, again, based because so many people come from everywhere else that live here.
Blimey.
So that's what this chamber does.
I'll tell you what, take a look around. Order, order, quiet please, quiet, quiet, quiet at the back there, and the press back there as well, be quiet please. Let's have some respect for Blackpool. Right, onwards my friends.
I don't know what to say.
I reckon you could be the future mayor, Stephen. I mean, you are Mr Blackpool. How does it feel?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Pretty good. You know, this might be a vision of the future.
Ooh.
This video might age very well.
We'll see, yeah. So if you're watching this video in 20 years' time, it's not a surprise.
Right, okay, so we're in your office. Now,
Yes.
I'm going to ask, you can both get involved in this question. So, obviously, I'm filming videos of the top 10 worst seaside towns in the UK that's been voted. It was in Time Out magazine, but I think it was a report that done by the Telegraph originally. Blackpool came number 4. I've done Morecambe already. Now, Blackpool, I don't believe, should be that high up on the list, if at all on the list. What's your thoughts of it being number 4 on the list, and do you think that it should be on there at all? And if so, where is Blackpool heading to now?
Yeah.
You did mention earlier on about there's a phase from that's the older generation, actually, the generation's older that lives here, isn't it? The population.
Yeah, absolutely, crikey. So there are two Blackpools in effect, Lee. You've got one that's on the suburbs, on the outer bits. They tend to be living longer there. They've got access to all the things that we need in life: good schools, good parks, access to all the things that we need. And then there's another Blackpool which really suffers, and we all know what that looks like, which is the inner part. And I think everybody recognises that. So that's a good thing, because you can only start fixing something once you recognise what the problem is. So what we need to do is make those inner bits as good as the outer bits of Blackpool. So what does that mean? It needs good housing, good mixed housing, and housing where your aspiration isn't to leave but to move. Now we're seeing around the world, people are moving into centres because they've got those things. So Manchester's seeing that, but I personally think we could do it. And in our chat earlier, I was talking about a place called Poundbury. Now, they've gone for a particular type of architecture, but it's not necessarily the architecture, whilst it's important. It's actually the fact that it's mixed housing. So you've got people with less incomes living next to people with higher incomes. And what starts to happen is people share networks. And everybody benefits, people with more money, people with less money. I think that's where Blackpool is trying to get to. It recognises it has to change, because at the moment, a lot of the problems that are generated there are consuming up all the resources, which means all the things that we enjoy can't be done. So we flip that on its side. It starts to mean we can invest in parks in these spaces. We can invest in some newer schools, certainly primary schools, and we'll start to bring that population age down, because our young people won't want to leave. We won't have a brain drain as such. We'll keep our best talent. So there is a multiversity coming, which is designed to do just that, and attract other younger people. But crucially, I think is the type of housing and sharing those networks, and trying then start to push our population up and enjoy the benefits, actually, because Blackpool is one of the most cosmopolitan places. It's full of people from everywhere else. And I've said, we're not on the end of the M55, we're on the gateway to the world. We share so many things with places I've lived in, Vancouver and Cape Town, very, very similar. So we need to sort of connect the same types of energy that exist in Blackpool, but with better housing. So the report itself, I disagree with it. It's only highlighted certain bits, but it's failed to see that the people here are pretty special.
Do you, not yourself, but do the council take the tourism really seriously in Blackpool and bringing more people in for holidaymakers, etc., as well as the people that just live here?
They do. There is a it's a massive part of the economy. So there's a recognition that tourism matters to Blackpool, without a doubt. It's a huge part of its economy. Without it, we wouldn't be able to sustain the theatres and the cinemas, because we are, as a town, and you have 141,000 people living here. So there's no way that's going to work. You couldn't sustain a tram service. You couldn't sustain the cinemas, the Winter Gardens, the Tower without the visitors. So absolutely. Where I think we've started to have conversations actually isn't just about necessarily the tourist economy. In order to do some of those central bits of work, we've also got to create a diversified economy. So creating employment in other areas. So Blackpool, for example, in the past, in Second World War, used to build the Wellington bomber. It had quite a big car industry here. It had coach building. So the past gives us some clues.
Was it TVR?
TVR.
TVR,
yeah.
wasn't it? After Trevor, wasn't it, I believe? A guy called Trevor.
So what you don't want to do is put all your eggs in one basket. You want to create a nice diversified economy which gives people sustainable incomes all year round, as well as your strong tourist economy. Now, what I noticed when I went to Vancouver was they've got just that, very diversified economy, but they've got a massive tourist economy. But because the other bits of the economy are performing well, it means the visitor experience is better, because there's lots more nicer things to do in other parts of the town or the city as well. So yes, the council's view is we invest in tourism. Just this week we've seen a new cinema open, But I think they're, to be fair to them, the view by everybody is we need to create employment that goes from January to December and not necessarily.
Not just the holiday periods.
Yeah.
Is it easy for, I did the Morecambe video, I don't think you've seen that yet.
No, I'm looking forward to seeing that, yeah.
I did have to say, I did kind of blame the council there with what's happened to Morecambe.
Yeah.
But I did get a few comments, and I do read all the comments, and somebody said, it's very easy to blame the council, but it's not their fault because they only get given a set budget for what they can spend on the town itself. Is there any truth in
Well,
that?
I have a slightly different view of local government. So I was, my background is I run my own business, and I became a councillor 13 years ago because I wanted to do things slightly differently. If anyone is thinking about becoming a councillor, I would say do it and bring your own experiences to the role. So I've always brought an entrepreneurial view of it, and I think that's how councils were in the past. Certainly around between 1870 and 1920, you saw a lot of those entrepreneurs. They would make their money, but they would also then get involved in local government because they saw it as a way of improving their town. And so they wouldn't just sort of say, okay, we're going to put a nice road in somewhere. They would look at all the things that matter to us, which goes back to that first point. So they would build art galleries as well as asylums, parks as well as prisons, books as well as bathhouses. They would do all of those things, all about making people feel happier. So yes, the council only gets a set amount of money. Any organisation does. It's about how you spend it, but also how do you generate more. So Blackpool Tower wasn't built by a government grant or a council grant. It was built by an entrepreneur, John Bickerstaff, who was able to connect a great business plan with other like-minded people. People invested in it and they built it. And there's nothing to say that you can't do all of those things, that you can't have charities, private sector, community groups, voluntary groups, and investors, internally and externally, and state support, developing those economies, so creating a real mixed economy to generate a place. So, and you've seen a little bit of that in Morecambe with the Eden project.
Yeah.
There's a developer, there's a council, but it's the key bit is what bit of money, where do you get it from that unlocks that bridge for them to then invest? That's the key.
What's your title here at the Blackpool Council? You are a councillor. You obviously have a lot of input into the heritage trams as well, which we did the videos on.
Yeah. So I have many hats. So you often find me taking these hats off to talk to different people. So I'm also the leader of the opposition group in Blackpool. And my view there is that opposition shouldn't just be like you see at Parliament, where everything you say is rubbish. You say, no, that's really good. Here is what we would do if we were doing it, and you're presenting an alternative. So that's my role in Blackpool, is to sort of challenge and support and be a critical friend.
You broke the stereotypical mould of a councillor, which I always say on the channel, and you're nothing like that. You're sort of like, on the daft videos that I did, it's more of a serious one. I call you the renegade councillor, because you get things done, like the heritage tram, etc., which we did the videos on. What's your vision for Blackpool for the future? Where would you like to see Blackpool in the next 20 years?
So my vision before I die, it's why I got involved in local government, is to put us on a par of Vancouver and Cape Town. And I've already started that in the ward that I represent. We've got in the playground, we've got a big world map, and it's got Cape Town, and this is in the playground, printed into it. So every child who's between 0 and 7 sees this about aspiration, because Blackpool suffered with aspiration. It lost that ability to believe in itself. So on that world map, it's got Cape Town, it's got Singapore, Melbourne, a place that you all know very well, and it's got Cape Town, and there in the middle is Blackpool. And what it's trying to do is connect young people to the fact that actually, as I said before, we're not on the end of the M55, we're the gateway to the world. So what do I want the future to look like? I want it to have that diversified housing, but not in a way that's gentrified, so nobody can afford to live there. But in a way that's actually that you can raise a family in a place, and you can have access to networks and access to capital and access to jobs, but keep that fun, crazy side of Blackpool. I love the fact that anything goes here, and I want that to be on a bigger scale. So rather than see the population drop, which it used to be 145,000, and it's now at 141, we need it to go up to 200 and so on. And you only do that by, I think, by building the right type of housing, and that's probably going to go upwards slightly. It's in it, but not in a way that you see in Hong Kong, but in a way that you see in places where those developments inspire people and so on. So great housing, great parks, and hopefully we won't be in the wrong league tables, we'll be in the best league tables. And generally, because we've got great people here, they're all from everywhere else, they've all got different ideas. It's about getting them to believe and channeling that and giving them the right plan. And then we won't just have nice suburbs, but we'll have a great centre as well.
Do you think it's very easy to say when I'm referring back to the Morecambe video. I wandered around saying, oh, it's a shadow of its former self. Do you think it's too easy now to look back and think, oh, we need to make it as it was, where you've got many people on the beaches there and you've got, people in their handkerchief hats? Do you think it's time to leave that behind and not look back to that and move forward?
Yeah, it's you can take the best of the past, absolutely, but you don't want to be a prisoner to it.
Yeah.
So when you look back at Morecambe in the 1950s, it wasn't like that in the 1850s. Somebody redesigned it, so actually this is what we want it to be. So Steve Jobs said, poke the world, if you don't like it, change it.
Yeah.
And so we need to say, okay, what's going to work for the needs of the people of, and that's what I love about Blackpool, because it's not just about Blackpool, it's actually the needs of that wider area of Lancashire, Yorkshire, Manchester, people from Birmingham and elsewhere that come here, the Midlands, like yourself. What are their needs? What do they want when they come here? What do they expect? So they expect nice accommodation. They want to see something better than where they're already staying. So we have to deal with some of the legacy of that 1950s and 60s architecture that's now not fit for purpose. So those old boarding houses that are struggling, have been turned into HMOs, are not fit for purpose anymore. And I think it's rightly recognised that a new type of architecture is what's required to give us something that takes us closer to where my experience of being in Vancouver or Cape Town is, which is all of those things that we need. So don't be a prisoner to the past. Keep the best bits. Get great architecture, because architecture inspires us. No more brutal, no more 1970s concrete. That's got to go. It's got to make us feel good about ourselves. The civic spaces, everything that needs to recognise that particular thing, that we are not machines, we are people, we have needs and wants. So and then we define backwards what we want. So that's again the thing I love most about Blackpool, is we can be as radical as we want to be or as useless as we want to be. That's entirely in our gift. And we can work backwards to say, okay, if that's what we want, then we won't settle for second best, and we will work to get in that and not be a prisoner to the past, but take the best of the past with us. And there's enough of the past that was brilliant.
Yeah.
So the Winter Gardens, the Tower, the Grand Theatre, and the Three Piers, and the fact that they gave us a tram line, the fact that they gave us a railway line, and so connecting with that spirit of the Victorians and our human needs and our infrastructure, there's enough of that there. It just needs to be repurposed so it's fit for the next 100 years and so on. So and cluster everything around that. So when you look how many theatres we've got and the new cinema, that almost feels like a Covent Garden in its own right. We just need to almost create that brand. Some of those buildings are only weeks old. But they're now part of that, sat quite comfortably next to a Victorian piece of brilliance in the WG or the Tower. But I think crucially, though, it's how we repurpose our housing, and in a way that takes us closer to, as I said earlier, the Poundbury model, the Dutch model. The Dutch model is telling us, don't drive everywhere. I know you may not like this bit, but you'll have a better experience for your children if they're learning to be independent by cycling to school or walking to school, because the things around them are quite closer. Whereas if they live in a suburb, mum and dad have got to drive them everywhere. By the time those kids are 16, 17, they're not as fit as they could be. They're very dependent on mum and dad, and we want to create independently minded, healthy people. And so yeah, that's quite exciting actually, that we're taking something really positive into this.
Do you have any questions, Stephen?
I was just interested to hear what Paul said about Blackpool. It's the main problem. What I noticed about Blackpool, I've been to other resorts like Scarborough and Skegness, and I've noticed that the difference between those and Blackpool, although they are very different, is that Blackpool, it's quite rough around the centre, isn't it? And like you say, it does as you go out towards the outer, it gets better, doesn't it? I didn't notice that with the other places. So, funny enough, I was in Scarborough, and you're in the centre of Scarborough, and I know it's a different resort altogether, but it's so different to Blackpool, where I struggled to find anywhere that was kind of run down, really.
Yeah.
And I had the same thing with Skegness as well. So that is a big problem with Blackpool. I've just heard you talking about it there, and it is something that hopefully we can, you know.
Scarborough was actually on the list of the top 10 worst seaside towns, which actually, along with Torquay, and I was in Torquay the other month with Sarah and the kids, and I actually thought it was a great place.
Yeah.
And I've always stuck by Blackpool, saying that, you know, you can go to any place in the world, and if you look for the bad part of it, you can find it. And it's all about camera angles as well, because you can film, you know, trash on the streets or rubbish. Actually, I shouldn't say that. Actually, that's my Americanism, isn't it?
Okay.
Rubbish on the streets. You know, beer cans or paint peeling off, etc. And they can look for the bad in something. But I think maybe these newspapers should look for the good in something, and also don't put it out. What I found with Morecambe was it's about the people as well. And like you're saying, if you can work on the people, then the place itself is a better place.
It is, yeah. The energy is great, isn't it? And I remember, I'm sure it was, because I've only seen the first bit of your video, and I was in a rush. I thought I'm going to sit down and watch this properly later, which I certainly will. But I'm sure you said in that video, which I thought was a really good point, was that bad news sells.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, you can do 10 great things and no one's really bothered. One bad thing and it's travelling all over.
And it's travelling all over the world. Do you think, we'll wind this up in a minute, 'cause it's the longest video in the world.
Sorry.
And I know you're not, no, it's me. I just keep talking. I could have a million questions. And I know you can't speak on behalf of Morecambe Council or Lancaster Council, I think it is. But I said, and there was a couple of people said that it was the fairground there, that when that went, that a lot of the tourism went with it as well. But it's interesting what you said. It's not just about the tourism of a place, it's about the people. Do you think that the fairground pulling that out had an impact on the place?
Yeah. So you kind of get a toppling effect in an economy, and it can go either way. So there's a point where everyone starts believing in a place, because it's like you go, wow, look at this. I'm going to start investing there because it's going to be the next big thing. And so there's a series of layers of success. Equally, there's a series of layers of decline. And some projects are what you would call those flagship projects that everybody recognises. They are the front of house. And if they go, people go, ooh, I don't see much of a future now. That's just confirmed all those other bits of decline I've seen. I think I'm going to put my investment in this place instead rather than in this place. So it can sort of topple against you as well. So it probably did, I imagine, because it was so front end, it was so dominant, especially with a smaller economy that was very dependent on tourism. And we've seen that not just with tourist towns, but we've seen it with mining towns and so on, you know, where they were very dependent on one industry and secondary support for that industry.
Mansfield, where I'm from,
it toppled an entire economy as a result, because it's fine to diversify, but not at the expense of one. You want to try and keep all these things balanced. So it sadly probably did, which is why it's great that Blackpool's has managed to keep its pleasure beach and its piers, because those are the bits that allow you to sell business tourism. I'm conscious of time, but I'll be very quick on this. Business tourism in Blackpool went down to 7%. It used to be massive. You used to have all those conferences, and so 7% of business tourism compared to 93% consumer tourism, normal people coming to a place. So what does it look like? Well, you want to keep that 93%, but in terms of the numbers, but now you want to reduce that percentage, so you're getting more business tourists here. So hence why the council invested in its conference centre. And that'll then sell people to come and invest here as well, because whilst they're doing one thing, you can say, oh, isn't this a great place because we've got the highest or the fastest data speed in the country alongside Newcastle upon Tyne, because the cable from New York comes in at Blackpool.
Does it?
It does, yeah.
All right, okay.
So
I was looking for fast internet today, actually.
and ironically, Blackpool is one of the slowest Wi-Fi's. So we need to fix that, because that's what people want. They do, going back to that thing we said earlier about the future.
Yeah.
You cannot pretend we're not going to have the internet, so we need to be the fastest. We've got the technology here already in Blackpool. Let's make that one of our things. So that's why, and business tourism demands that. So that's why we need to get that closer to probably about 20%, whilst retaining that 93% type figure in terms of volume of tourists that come here. Far bigger business numbers. That's why you don't want to be losing those things. You don't want to be throwing any babies out with the bathwater in this.
I think we've got Stephen as well, who's pushing Blackpool. He's doing a fantastic job for
Right,
Blackpool, isn't
amazing,
he?
amazing.
Yeah, Mr. If you do like Blackpool vlogs, that is your man. He is your man right there. I'll put his link at the end. You've been absolutely fantastic. Can I just ask one more question?
Okay.
One final question, and it goes back. I know you've not seen the Morecambe thing, but I blamed the council for letting the fairground go. Is it really their fault? It was very easy for me to blame them on the camera.
Yeah.
I don't know, because I'm not a councillor. Is that something they could have gone, well, actually, we need a fairground here. We'll plough some money into it.
Okay, so you've always got to be minded that this money's not your own.
Yeah.
You have a duty of care about other people's money. The one thing that is challenging in local government, and I'm sure there are councillors who watch this and enjoying their corned beef sandwiches. I certainly enjoy corned beef, so I'm fine to say that. But you are restricted in what you can spend your money on in terms of statutory stuff. So you've got to look after the children, and you've got to look after adult care. Now, in local government around England and Wales, I think in Blackpool now it's about 80%, say I'm being a bit generous there, I suspect, is now locked in. So 80% of your budget is spent on looking after children who need support and people who are elderly need support, and that's absolutely fair. We must look after those people. But what that means is there's only a tiny 18 to 20% left for all the other things, your roads, your libraries.
Yeah.
So then you get to a point and say, okay, we now have to invest. Do we let it go? Do we not? Now, Blackpool has been incredibly brave. It owns the tower. It's brought the Winter Gardens. All the parties in Blackpool think that was the right thing to do, and it was the right thing to do, without a doubt, for the reasons we said earlier. However, if you take a gamble, and remember Morecambe and Mr Blobbyland?
Yes.
So you can get it wrong as well.
Yeah. Somebody mentioned that.
And then everybody's going, council wasting our money, and then you have to have the right plan, and you have to really believe that you can do it. And so in Blackpool, I think in the 1980s, the council ended up taking on the Sandcastle.
The Sandcastle, yeah. And I remember when the Sandcastle was built, and I think it got off to a bit of a shaky start as well. But I think when you look at it now, it's all been expanded, and they put the water slide. It's very basic compared to what it is now. Got the big water slides and all that sort of thing, and they've now got the casino, haven't they?
Yeah.
On the other side as well. So it looks to be doing really, really well.
And so that's an example where the council coming in to save something worked.
Yeah.
But you've got to know what you're doing, you've got to believe in it, and you've got to have almost a long-term plan.
Yeah.
So you're from Nottingham,
Yeah.
or around that area. You'll be familiar with Robin Hood Energy.
Yeah.
So a council got it wrong,
Yeah.
and that can bring down the entire council.
Yeah.
So that's why you've got to be so careful when you use public money, which is why I believe generally about trying to create legacies, so people who may want to bequeath money, not just to the council but to projects, working with community groups, working with charities, volunteers, and the private sector as alongside the council is going to give you a far better or a lower level of risk and a better level of return. Just as I say, because imagine now if I said to you, right, Lee, I want to build this huge tall steel structure by the sea. I'm going to call it Blackpool Tower. And yeah, I know it's really corrosive here with the weather and so on, but I'm going to make money on it. You'll think I was mad. Yeah, and you certainly wouldn't give me a fiver for it. And that's why you need to have the right plan with the right people and with the right vision. And then people will give you that fiver in big numbers to deliver those sorts of projects.
Brilliant. So there we go. So we'll come back in a few years' time and you will be at number one of the best seaside towns
Absolutely.
in Great Britain.
Yeah.
Brilliant. We just need to clone you and put you in every other council across the UK now, and then we'll be good. We'll get Great Britain back again.
It's very kind. Excellent, excellent. I'll give you that £5 later for that.
Thank you very much. Onwards, my friends. Right, so absolutely brilliant interview there with Paul. Fantastic guy. Does not fit the stereotypical councillor at all.
No.
Brilliant. Paul, if you're watching, you are brilliant. You're fantastic. But he does like corned beef, apparently. Corned beef sandwiches, so you do fit that bit. But we'll forgive you. Hopefully you have salad cream on it. Anyway, we've got the old phone boxes behind us here and the building, which is the old post office.
It is the old post office, yeah, and it's been here since around about 1914, something like that. Yeah, it closed down in 2008. This post office here, the main post office in Blackpool, and what they're trying to do is trying to see if they can turn it into like a boutique hotel. It's a long time in the process, but I think things are looking like they might be turning it into a boutique hotel.
That'd be really nice. Hopefully they keep the phone boxes outside.
Yeah, these we've got 8 classic red phone boxes outside. Now these days they tend to be
We have, unfortunately, a gentleman or is it a lady or there's a person living in one of them. What's the homelessness like in Blackpool? I haven't seen too many homeless people around.
I tell you something else. We do have homeless in Blackpool, but I've seen it a whole lot worse in some other places. So I think that's one thing we have to be thankful for. It's not as bad as what it is, and even if it is, the homeless are looked after. There's plenty of charities around here that do look after the homeless.
I have to say, as I said earlier on, you can make any place, and this is what the newspapers do, you can make any place look really bad. It's like we've gone around here on the way up to here and we've filmed a few shops that have been boarded up and shut down. But next door to them, there's shops that are actually open as well. So it's only what these places actually show. Blackpool itself is a hive of activity. And tomorrow we're actually filming this prior to Good Friday. And Good Friday is going to be heaving here in Blackpool.
Oh yeah, I think the Scottish are on holiday as well. The Scottish kids are on holiday a bit earlier than ours. I'm not too sure, but I think there's going to be loads of people in Blackpool this weekend. Yeah.
Now you're going to show us down one of the streets. We're going to take a walk down to the south pier. We're going to have a look at one of the streets down there that is a little bit more shady. So we can show you that side. But if you go along the front, there are a lot of places. It is literally a hive of activity. So shall we take a wander down south pier and you can show me, is it a dangerous part of town or?
I wouldn't say dangerous, but it's a little bit sketchy. You know, it can be a little bit interesting.
The question is, will it be kicking off in Blackpool?
Oh, it could be kicking off. We'll see.
Come on onwards, my friends.
Okay, so we're now on Edward Street, which is round the back of the main post office. This is where the sorting office used to be, and the council are doing a job along here. What they're doing is they're putting new shop fronts along here, and we've already got some businesses set up down here. It's quite a nicely done, laid out street. It's part pedestrianised. They've made the road very narrow, and as you can see here, we've got some nice shop fronts, very similar to what they're doing on Topping Street. So yeah, this is what the council want to do. They want to try and make this street more presentable and get some shops along here. And there's some businesses down there, solicitors and chartered accountants and that sort of thing. And hopefully when the post office and this big building here behind us, which was the sorting off, that didn't close until about 2014. What they want to do is turn the whole thing into like a sort of boutique hotel with a shopping mall at the bottom. So that's the plan. We'll have to wait and see what happens, but I'm pretty sure things are moving forward with it. Yeah, so we're now on Havelock Street in the central area, and just behind us is one of the many guest houses here in Blackpool, but this one, I'm not sure if it was empty or not, but there was a fire not too long ago. It was made the headlines, the local headlines, and the place looks like it's pretty gutted. Yeah, and I believe that they were growing something in here. they call it a grow house. There's plenty of them here in Blackpool. Yeah, so that's probably how the fire started, I think.
Okay, so we've got a gentleman here who doesn't want to be on camera, but he is originally from Glasgow. What's your thoughts of Blackpool?
I think it's a bit of a shithole. I'm allowed to say that.
Yeah, I'll bleep that bit out.
And I think it needs more work done in the town centre, the town. I've got a derelict building opposite me, which is an eyesore. And it just makes the town look worse.
How long have you lived here?
I've been in Blackpool on and off for nearly 40 years.
But originally from Glasgow?
Yeah.
Okay, and do you think there's potential for Blackpool, or?
I think there could be, as a possibility, but I think the council need to kick up the sort of thing, and get things sorted.
I'm going to have to say something here, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but after talking to Paul, that gentleman there was on about blaming it all on the council, and I blamed Morecambe all on the council. But after listening to Paul's side of the story, it's very easy to blame it on the council, but it's not actually all the council's fault, because it's budgeting, it's where they put the money. And as he mentioned with Blobbyland, which was in Morecambe, they put money into that and it failed. So they've got to be careful where they actually put their funding.
I was quite surprised. I learned quite a lot from what Paul said when he said when councils buy into things, they have to be very, very careful that they don't lose, or they're not going to lose money long term. And another thing about the properties in Blackpool, we've just been looking at this guest house here. Some of it's very, very complicated. They're owned by, they have people that live abroad that own them. And it's not always easy to just get them to tidy these things. You can't even find where the landlord, where the people own them,
Yeah.
So there's people that own these properties all over Blackpool, all over, and they're probably living in Dubai or somewhere like that. They're not here in Blackpool. I say that a lot, don't I? Here in Blackpool. And that's one of the problems. It's very, very complicated. It's not so easy to sort out these empty properties when they get all derelict. It's not quite as easy as what people think.
No. I'm going to wind the video up here. What I'm going to say is I'm going to thank Paul again as well, and thank Stephen here from Walk on the Wild Side. If you want to see more of Blackpool, I'm not here. I don't live in Blackpool, and this guy here has got a fantastic channel, and it's all about Blackpool as well, amongst other things as well. But you know an awful lot about Blackpool. In fact, you are I'd say the ultimate Blackpool vlogger, the ultimate Blackpool YouTuber. So make sure you subscribe to this guy. Again, thank you to Paul, the councillor there, who does like a corned beef sandwich, but let me know in the comment section, or just message me whether you have mayonnaise on it, because then that way you're not stereotypical. But it is interesting, on a serious note, to listen to the council side, because I'm always the first to jump on the bandwagon and say it's the council's fault, when really they have to be careful where they put their budget in. So I am going to sort of like hold my hand up and say I'm kind of wrong by blaming it straight onto the council there, so because there is another side of it, and it is so easy to blame councils.
Yeah, I mean, if you go on Facebook, you know what Facebook's like. Whenever something happens and like something, a building falls down or something.
What do you think to Blackpool? What do you think to Blackpool?
It's a complete dive.
It's a, oh, okay. Do you live here?
I do love, yeah. And when we came here 6 years ago, it was lovely on the street, and now you got places like this. You got all kids watching this building. All that there's a crap. We're just full of rats. So you council lot later, get off your ass and get something done.
There we go.
And that's my answer.
See you later. Bye bye. Going to be using a lot of the bleep machine there, but it does reiterate again where people ultimately blame the council. But I'm part of that. I'm part of that, I have to say.
Yeah. You get people on Facebook saying the councils, or they call the council but the council are a collection of people that were voted into place, aren't they? I suppose by the people, the councillors, and all that sort of stuff. So they're working for us, but a lot of people think they're not working for us. So it must be a bit of a tough job, I suppose.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but however, first of all, do the Mac Master. The Mac Master.
Everyone, Shining Diamond, right here. Beautiful
Shining
place
Diamond.
to stay at.
Oh, it looks like a nice
Shining
hotel, that
Diamond.
one. Yeah, look
Brilliant.
at that.
There we go. Brilliant. So there we go. There you have it. Blackpool. Head over to this guy's channel, and also don't blame the council. Don't be too quick to blame the council. Thanks again, Paul. You know what? Although I will say, every council needs Paul.
Yeah.
They should be able to clone him.
I learned quite a lot from what he said. I really did learn. I'm learning all the time, mate. You know, when I do my videos, I like to point out little bits that people don't know about Blackpool, little bits of history that I've learned, and I like to sort of let other people know, oh, you know, this used to be such and such, and I've learned so much from meeting people and that sort of thing, and that's what I like to do on my videos. I like to tell people, oh, this used to be, you know, such and such a place, and, you know. Yeah.
On this final ending here, you'll have seen a little bit of sad music, a lot of boarded up shops, which I've filmed because I've gone around and looked for those boarded up shops. And that just goes to show what these newspapers and the media do. They show the worst sides of it. However, have a look at Stephen's channel and you will see a lot of the good sides as well. Amongst a lot of the bad sides, you show both.
I think that when I started my channel, the idea was to show both sides of Blackpool, to show warts and all, but to also show, you know, our fantastic promenade and the piers and all that sort of thing, and the amazing sunsets, the beach. I mean, Blackpool's got so much going for it. It has to have a bright future.
And you told me, well, we'll leave on this one, West
Is best.
Make sure you hit that subscribe button to him as well. Bye bye.